thought we'd come back and have a look at the front garden again, because since I last showed you, it's really grown even in this short time. So I've been out here for a little while this morning. The sun, as you can see, the sun's on this side of it and it's gone off the other side, because that's what happens as it's an east facing garden, as the sun moves across the house. But anyway, just look at this green, and this is the ribes that I put in. And as a little bare root, and it's taken so well. In fact, there are some little bits of blossom even starting, and that is beloved of the bees, and it's one of the earliest sources of nectar and for them. So that's really good thing to have in the garden. The clematis here is rather rambling and not really going anywhere, so I'm going to put some wires up against the porch here and frame this against the porch, which would be nice because it'll give some privacy in the porch and you won't be able to see straight through the porch. When I first saw the house, it had got plants growing all over the porch, but they were all pulled off by the builders and then they didn't finish. Oh, well, anyway, that's another story. So I've watered everything in the front this morning because everything's been so dry. It hasn't rained for ages. I don't really want to have a kind of garden that needs lots of watering. The idea with these perennials I put in last year is to grow them tough, as they say, so that you don't keep watering them and they have to find their own way. But the new little trees and so on I've put in, like this little rowan here, I don't know if you can see it actually, here, which has just got its buds here. Those kind of things, they really, especially if they're newly planted, they really do need water to start with. Can't just ignore them. And this is the wayfaring tree, beautifully named, which is, as you can see, got its leaves, and I put that into a little bare root as well, and I watered that this morning. And this cotoneaster, and they are my kind of secret weapons because they're going to grow up hopefully and be a really good shield, or if that's the right word. But anyway, they're going to do a good job in making screening, that's the right word, screening, and making this into more of a secret garden. And as you can see, my little rose here, which I call the fairy rose, because it has very delicate little pink flowers and beautiful hips with great long and delicate sepals around them, which as they dry out look absolutely beautiful. And the dogwood, which as you can see has got its leaves as well. And just all the things like the perennials that have come up like here, little clumps now. And these were alpine strawberries that I grew from seed. I put them in around the pond, which we'll come back to, the pond, which is not such a happy story, but I'll come back to that in a minute. And we've got a very messy corner where the sparrows sit, but we'll kind of gloss over that. And that's the new little hazel, which again is just getting some leaves, little bare roots, so you've got to be patient, but it'll be worth it in the end. And I've got various geraniums here. I don't know what they're going to come out like. They were just like little pots I bought from outside the egg place, so I don't know what the flowers are like, but they will spread, and they don't mind fairly difficult conditions like being dry under the hedge and not having that much sun, or only having sun in the mornings anyway. And the hellebores just going over, but I actually love them when they're doing that, so they go greener and they sort of lose their colour, but I love the subtle tones that they acquire. The foxgloves coming bigger, which is really lovely to see. And well, actually I have quite a lot of foxgloves. And the geum, which is just getting its buds. And there's just so much, we could just look at everything really, but I want to keep it fairly brief. You can see how the willows, they're a long way off making an arch yet, but you can see how they're getting some leaves as well. So anyway, the thing about the pond, which is not a success story, and I won't be too proud to show you, because I'm going to show you what it looks like when I've dealt with it. But over the winter, all the plants died in the pond, and it just looks really awful. It's just, I suppose what was there is all rotted, and it's just not nice. So I've actually got some more pond plants in the boot of the car, which have been there for a couple of days, but I think they should be all right. And I'm going to replant this pond this afternoon, and I'll come back and show you what I've done. I've actually got enough plants to do another little pond, and I've got an old enamel bowl, so I'm going to do that in another part of the back garden, because you can't have too much water really, too many little wildlife ponds. So that's what I'm planning to do this afternoon, and a bit more in the back as well. So I don't want to linger too much on that site actually, not what we want to see. I think we prefer to see the hope engendered in lovely tulip bud there. Here's that snake's head fritillary I was showing you just as it was opening, and look at it now. Isn't that just the most beautiful thing? And I shall come back, I shall show you when I've done a bit more later on. We had a sudden downpour. It suddenly has got really, really cold in the front garden as well because all the sun's gone. But what I've done, as you can see, is I've planted up the little pond. So I cut down those reeds because some of them were dried and dead. So I thought cut them all down and see what happens. And I've cleaned it out. I've put some more water in it. It's got to clear, of course. And I've put 3 plants in. I put in water mints, which is this one. And this is called marsh woundwort. And the one at the back is yellow flag iris. And I've also got a couple of sorts of floating oxygenating weeds, which you can see in the middle there. Of course, it's all got to settle down, but hopefully that will be a lot better. And I don't know if you didn't see the earlier video about the front garden, you might not know, but the pond itself was the old copper out of the wash house here at the old shop. There was a quite a derelict outbuilding that was demolished before I moved in. I needed to put the space to put the caravan there, which I was living in for 18 months, but the roof was all bashed in anyway by a big wisteria which had grown up and smothered it, and it was just in really bad condition. So of all the things that I did that maybe weren't what I would do now, I think that really did have to go. And there was an old copper in the corner which would have been used for the washing, the laundry. It's really quite deep. It's bell shaped. It's probably deeper than you need for a pond really, but with lots of big flints in the bottom, which probably most of those actually came from the walls of the wash house, because it was a little flint outbuilding. So it's kind of all kept quite in-house, and there it is. So it looks huge in this picture, I know, but it's actually quite small. I would say it's about 2 foot diameter at the top, something like that. And if the plants grow, they'll probably get a bit too big for it, but for now they'll be quite nice to fill it out a little bit. So anyway, without further ado, I shall move out of the garden here, because then the birds can come back to their feeders, because they quite resent me coming in here. I think they think it's their garden. So we'll leave them in peace now, and I've got to go and do the other pond, which I've got 3 plants for that one as well, and some more weeds. But I'm going to have a cup of coffee first, because it's actually really cold in the front here, and I think the back will be warmer, which is where I'm going to put the other pond. But I've got to warm up first because my fingers are hurting. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed seeing that, and I shall show you when I've done the other one. Well, here's the second little pond. This is in the back garden. I made this really quickly, and it's just established itself in terms of the plants looking a bit happier than they did when I put them in. So I thought I would show you what I've done. It was so quick and easy compared to the one I made using the old copper from the wash house here, because that's such a deep bell shape. It was quite problematic to work out how to fill it. But this was just a very, very simple enamel bowl, quite a big enamel bowl, but not very deep, a shallow one. And I used to use it in the garden often just for weeding, putting the weeds into as I went round, and just general garden tasks really. I've had it for years. I might miss it, and if I do miss it too much for that, I will probably have to find something else for the pond. But I just thought it'd be so quick and simple, which it indeed has proved to be, with the other pond plants I had. So they've stood themselves up a little bit. They look a little bit happier than when I put them in. Not that they were unhappy then really, but it was quite a joy to do, because it was so easy and just so rewarding, and anyone can do this. Just need some 2 or 3 pond plants, and I've got, this is a Carex, a sedge and it'll grow quite tall, I think. And that's there's a rush. I don't know which varieties they are, I can't remember now. I have got the labels, but I've taken them off. And this is purple loosestrife, which is immortalised indeed in Hamlet, when Ophelia's speech, when she talks about long purples, which is the purple loosestrife, long purples, which shepherds give a grosser name, or something like that. So obviously there was some kind of bawdy name that used to be given. But all I've done is I've stood them in the bottom of the bowl. I put a little bit of gravel, washed gravel from the front in the bottom. I don't think you'd have to really, but I did. I looked carefully in case there were any more prehistoric flint tools in there, because I found so many little blades in the front gravel, which I shall, one of these videos I'll show you the ones I found. I'm sure there are masses more. That's just really casual looking, but I can't help always looking to see if I can see I think they're Mesolithic little blades that I've been finding. Obviously where my gravel came from must have been some kind of site of flint working, I should imagine. Anyway, as well as the 3 plants I've just mentioned, I've got 2 sorts of water weed that just float in the water, and you just buy that by the bunch. It doesn't cost much. I paid, I think, £2 for each bunch, and I've got 2 bunches, but I put half in this pond and half in the other one. So you have to have something like that to keep the water clear, and the water is lovely and clear already. It's better to use rainwater, much better, but my rainwater is really mucky looking in the barrels, and so I actually have used tap water, but it won't take that long before it's kind of sorts itself out and will become more natural. And in the meantime, I don't think the plants are minding. I think they're just happy to have their feet in the water, really. So it's a very bare bed at the moment. Well, there's lots of other things going on in the bed, but I will talk about them another time. And I've got quite a few more fruit bushes that are still sitting there waiting to go in as well. This here is a black currant next to the pond, and there are various fruit bushes here already actually, and there's a rhubarb, but that's another bit of video I think to look at what's in the bed. I will just show you though the blossom here on the Victoria plum, newly planted. It's just so rewarding when you have just put a very bare looking tree in not that many months ago, and in the spring the blossom comes and you realise it's alive and it's a real tree and it's going to grow and everything's going to be well, you know, close as what I imagined in the fullness of time. This is another water source for the birds in the garden, and that's the bird bath. And I'm just walking past it to show you the other ponds again, see how it's establishing. And look, you can see middle of April and there's actually ice. Can you see the ice around the edge there? Yeah, it's a cold morning. The edges of the plants where they've caught the frost, you can see a beautiful little lacy edging. But yeah, I suppose you do get frosts after the middle of April, but it is a pretty chilly snap, even though we had lots of sunshine. So I'm not sure what the plants make of it, because on the one hand it's very, very spring-like, and on the other hand, yeah, it has some very cold wind situations and cold nights. So anyway, here's the other little pond. And so it's a little while now since I did this, a couple of days now because time goes on, and I thought I'd just show you that it is looking happier. The water's clearing, the pond weed is doing its job. Where I cut the rushes down, obviously they just look like cut down rushes, but I think that will encourage them to make some nice new green growth. And here, this is the marsh woundwort, which has stood itself up, and the yellow flag. So I'm happy with that, and the stones around the edge look quite natural, the flints and the beach. There's a few beach pebbles, they're mostly flints that were here. I think they probably came out of the old outbuilding, but I've got a pile of old flints, cobbles, flint cobbles. So that's nice to use those, and I think with the one at the back as well, I'll put some around that as well, just to keep the earth away from it. You can see the water rippling, and reflections, which is just so nice whenever you have water. That's a lovely aspect of it for us, and there's not so much perhaps what the birds and other wild creatures mind about, but But it's all part of the pond experience, really. You can hear all the little birds' wings and little chirps as they're flying around in the hedge here, waiting for me to go. So I shall do that, and I shall, we'll come back to the pond as the plants grow and see how it's looking. I imagine there might even be a day when I have to start pulling bits out and making more space for the water. But until then, I'm really happy with that. I said it was a tale of 3 ponds, and this is the 3rd one. So this is in the back garden as well, and it's on the other side of the garden from the one I made last night. So this is the north side, which is obviously doesn't get as much sunshine. It does get some in the mornings particularly, but anyway, there's obviously enough for the plants because this is the only pond I've done nothing to at all. It's stayed like this through the winter, and the plants have not died, unlike the other one, and in fact they're spreading and looking quite healthy. And you can see here, this is a marsh marigold, and you can see it's in bud, which is really lovely to see. And there's some water mints just there. I don't know what those here are, but I love seeing these ripples in the water and reflections. It's just very pleasing indeed. And this is another old copper, like the one in the front garden, so it's very deep. It's got lots of stones in the bottom to try and make it a bit more manageable with the plants. And it's not the one that was here at the cottage, that's the one in the front garden. It's one that I bought, well, quite a long time ago now, and I was waiting to put both the ponds in, which I did do last summertime, I think it was. Anyway, this one is not so remarkable to show you in that it's not done anything drastic, and it hasn't needed any extra drastic work. I imagine that in the summer it'll need topping up, and eventually I'll need to get some of the spreading plants out of it, because it's only a very small pond and I don't want it to get completely choked so you can't see any water. But hopefully it will attract wildlife, and it will certainly the birds like to have a little drink out of it, and hopefully it will also eventually maybe attract some frogs and toads, or even newts. And if so, it would be really lovely that they are here, but also they will hopefully also help to keep down any slugs and snails that might be eating the other plants. Although, again, if everything's in balance, I don't mind losing a little bit to slugs and snails. I wouldn't do anything drastic with them, but if the frogs and toads need food, then so be it, and the slugs and snails will be quite tasty for them. So it kind of just all works out. If you can get it right and get it in balance, then everyone's happy, apart from the slugs and snails, I suppose. These little violas, I just put them in. I think I actually got them as a free, I did get them as a free gift with something else when I was buying some plants. It's not something I would usually buy, but I did, and I had this little stone trough I've put them into, and actually, having given them some water, I walked past them back to the house and I realised how lovely they are looking. Just, they do repay just a little bit of attention. Just giving them a little bit of water has made them flower again, and I think the morning light is very nice across here as well. So anyway, I just thought I'd show you these to finish with and say I should be back soon. There's so much to see in the garden and in the countryside at the moment, so I should come back and show you some more things at the old shop. And meanwhile, just sending you greetings and blessings.